place and creed, but not exclusive to it. It's more than abstract values too. There's a core British nation that might be added to, but too much addition and the nation itself fades away. To reach for a metaphor, the British drink can be added to. If the additions are small enough, a trickle perhaps, rather than a stream, the nature of the original drink is not fundamentally changed. But the amount of watering down matters, of course. Too much too quickly, and the drink is diluted beyond all recognition. Assimilation requires moderation. Moderation in numbers. If becoming British is too easy, if too many non-Brits choose to do it too quickly, we lose a sense of the core that holds it all together in the first place. In short, it's no surprise that the proportion of people reaching for the birthright safeguard has doubled in the face of record-high migration. Well, joining me now to discuss this is a right proper British gentleman, but one who wasn't born in Britain. No, Henry Bolton, where were you born and are you British?
I'm absolutely British, Tom, and I was born in Kitale in the Rift Valley in Kenya. What was Kenya, now Kenya. And I would say I'm British. Kenya at the time was British. My father was born there. He was British. His grandfather, or his father, my grandfather, is buried there. He was British. He went there because he was an injured serviceman from World War I. He fought in World War I, was injured, and was given a grant by the government to go out there and set up a business, which he did. My grandparents or my grandfather on the other side was fleet surgeon at the Battle of Jutland in World War I. My father fought in World War II. I was in Afghanistan. I was in Kosovo. I was a commissioned officer in the British Army. You know, I worked for the Foreign Office for nigh on 2 decades on security-related diplomacy. So,
okay, Henry, I'm going to approve your papers this time.
So I also led the United Kingdom Independence Party for a while. I think you know, pretty much I qualify as a Brit. And but I think there are 2 things, Tom, sort of quite seriously about being British. First of all, it is an identity. And it is an identity that you either inherit by birth, or I think you can adopt it by choice. But it is a case of adopting that identity. And in my view, it's you adopt it by choice and then you are granted it by privilege. And with that privilege comes commitment, responsibility, and it is not a license to then come to the United Kingdom and say, I'm British legally, and therefore, although my culture is different, I have a right to call my culture British because I am British, because I've got a passport that says so. That granting British citizenship is not a license to, as you I liked your analogy, to water down what intrinsically are British values, social norms and principles. Democracy, equality, the rule of law, justice, all of these things. There are a plethora of things that we, I think, would point to and say this is and other countries would as well, say this is an intrinsically British thing. Nobody has the right to come here, apply for a British passport and then say, I'm British, but the culture now is a different one to the one that you used to have. They've got no right to do that whatsoever. And I think so the 2 things, if you are not, even people who inherit Britishness by birth, if you like, sometimes are busy trying to undermine what it means to be British. So I think those 2 things sort of go hand in glove. You've got to have the legal status of being British, and you've got to have the commitment to being British as well, to adopt our ways to and not to undermine them. If either of those does not count, then I don't think that you have a right to call yourself British. Even if you have a passport and you're legally British, you are not, by character and adoption of your way of life, you are not British.
And it's very difficult sometimes to sort of define what we mean by British values. You can sort of see it when you see it, but to try and delineate it on paper, we're not like the French or Americans who sort of will write down exactly sort of what to believe. They have their constitutions. we've sort of grown as a nation over millennia. It's sort of been added to and evolved over many, many years. It's very hard because we haven't had a sort of year zero. One of my favourite facts about this country is we're the only country in the world to not have a national day, mainly because most countries have an Independence Day, mostly from us. But I suppose getting to that point, how do you make sure, how do you provide for a path for people to become British when it's not really evident what exactly they must be ascribing to, other than just sort of absorbing the water in which we all swim?
Just as an aside, I think that we should have a national day, a national flag day, and the Union Jacks and the St George's Crosses and the Welsh flags and everything that can go up all across these islands. I think that would be a great thing. And I think that would sort of reinforce a bit of identity. One of the problems is that over decades, we've so liberally and generously allowed people to come to the United Kingdom and talk about multiculturalism and so on. And they have, intentionally or otherwise, some intentionally and some not, have diluted the sort of archetypical sort of British character. That is a fact. And what's happened now is that as people have been able to do that, they've pointed also to the fact that I alluded to it just now. I have a British passport. I'm British, but my culture is different to yours. Well, we need to push back against that, because otherwise we have no national identity and being British becomes meaningless. So you're right, though. Of course, society evolves over time. It changes. I've just alluded to the fact that my father fought in World War II. For most people, that's their grandfather or great-grandfather who fought in World War II. So I'm showing a little bit my age, perhaps. But you know, in my lifetime, society has evolved incredibly quickly. But in every generation, it does that. So yes, society evolves. But what we are doing is we are losing something very precious by the rate at which we are allowing it to be dissolved or to evolve. And that then makes the whole problem more difficult. And actually, I think you can see it makes the country more difficult to govern. You have sectarianism coming into politics. You have polarization in politics, and you have less and less to unite us, because we're allowing more and more people to say, well, I belong to my own faction of what British is. I don't sign up to your part of it. And so the commitments, the duties, the responsibilities, the values are no longer shared by all of the population. And I think
it's a really important point. Well, Henry, we're going to have to leave it there, but Henry Bolton, thanks indeed for talking through and also giving us such a marvellous delineation of your family history there. Really good stuff. Well, before I bring in my wonderful panel on this question, this morning our South of England reporter, Isabel Fakulak, asked the good people of Gosport what they think you have to be born in Britain or not to be British, and here's what they had to say.
Yeah, if you're born somewhere else, if you're born in France, you're French. If you're born in England, you're English. That's it.
And what do you think makes a person truly British then?
They've got to have a good sense of humour.
I think that they can be truly British and come from anywhere as long as they are happy to live here with everyone else in peace.
But wherever you're born, that is your place of birth. And to be a truly British person, I think you need to be born in this country and not come from abroad.
No, because there's people who come from outside this country and who aren't born in this country who give good to society in this country. And I think that to say that people who aren't born in this country aren't British is missing out on people who contribute fundamentally to different parts of this country, in both economically and culturally.
Well, that's what the people of Gosport had to say, but let's return to Westminster now. I'm joined by the former Conservative MP for Wokingham, Sir John Redwood, and the former Labour writer Scarlett Maguire. Scarlett, let's start with you. What do you make of these findings today? Double the number of people saying you have to be born here to be British.
Obviously, they're not thinking about people like one of my brothers and one of my sisters who were born in Moscow and the United States, and my father was born in India. I mean, like Henry, you know, they're not thinking about that either, because they'll look at them and they're white and they speak English like an English person. And so what we're really saying is, if you come from foreign parents and were born there, then you can never be British. But actually, you've been saying, and Henry's been saying, all these people, it's very difficult to become British. You can get employment visas over here. You can get indefinite leave to remain. To be British, you have to take a test.
It's a very easy test. It's multiple choice.
It's not a very easy test.
It's a very easy test.
Most of my friends couldn't get. I mean, it's about a lot of things that you wouldn't know generally, and you have to want to do it, right? And so I think actually not that many people become British citizens. Immigration is about people coming here to work. Becoming British is different, and of course it's changed. I mean, I noticed that Henry says, "Oh, you know, it's about the rule of law and it's about justice and this," but actually, that's not what really people are saying aren't British. I mean, what is it? Is it a tikka masala? It's supposed to be chicken tikka masala.
Yeah,
sorry,
invented in Glasgow.
Well,
Brilliant
but
British dish.
isn't it supposed to be the most popular dish in Britain?
It was invented in Britain.
Right, but what I'm saying is that actually I don't think people do come here and say, oh, I don't believe in the rule of law. I mean, you know, and it's really, really important that we understand that it's not. I mean, that being British, you know, yes, it is a privilege, but it's a privilege for those of us who are born here too.
So, John, what do you make of it?
Well, I think being a British citizen is one of the great privileges in life. You win a lottery in the world system if you are a British citizen. And so rightly, all those of us born of British parents in Britain are automatically British citizens. And rightly, we extend that privilege to others who would like to do it and come and apply in a sensible way. I think you got it absolutely right in your opening when you said people just feel overwhelmed by numbers and they feel that it has to go at a steady pace so that the settled community doesn't feel that it's outnumbered and doesn't find it difficult to find the homes and the jobs and the social patterns that the new people coming in would need to be truly British. And when the Home Office gets better at making these decisions, making fewer decisions in favour of people becoming British citizens, they've got to understand that people are very worried because we don't want people at the extreme end who are terrorists wanting to blow us up and demolish our system, granting them the privilege of citizenship. We obviously want to grant the privilege to people who are going to make best use of it and are closest to our national story and our national values.
And this is a particular, I suppose, issue this week because of what we learn about a particular chap who spent a decade in an Egyptian prison. He became a British citizen while he was in prison, and we learnt that that was likely because we no longer have a requirement for a good character test when you become a British citizen. That was stripped out by a British judge's ruling on the basis of an ECHR right. I think some foreign criminal had appealed. And now we can't have a good character test for people becoming British citizens, which seems a bit peculiar, really. Shouldn't we have such a test?
I think in that case in particular, he has abjectly apologised. He said he's a completely different person now to that young... I mean, he said, you know, as a father, I think properly, he says some of the tweets were misrepresented. So I do think in this...
I think he was about my age when he sent those tweets.
Now, yes, he was an adult.
He was more than an adult.
He's apologised, and he has apologised and said he was wrong. And I mean...
And what about some of the more recent statements and retweets?
That he hasn't... I mean, he's been in jail for years and years and years. We gave him British citizenship. He's really pleased to be here. I mean, actually, people like him can do an awful lot of good. I think that's what we always forget, is people who've changed can go and say, no, this isn't the way to do it, right?
I'm just not sure I've seen the evidence that he himself has changed, but I don't want to get bogged down in this one specific case.
No, I agree.
I just
minded about this particular case.
Yes.
But I do think, I mean, I just think it's really difficult because, you know, there was an article in The Spectator saying that the man who did all the knifing in Peterborough, you know, of course it was about mass immigration and he might have been born here, but he didn't have British values. And you think, how many white British people, you know, do terrible things. And do we say this is the case? I mean, it's not about British fact. Of course, we think that people shouldn't knife people. And I just think
but we don't invite more criminals in. That's why.
He was born here, John. He was born here.
Well, I wasn't talking about that case, but people don't want us inviting potential criminals and actual criminals in.
I think we should be very tough on it.
But as you well know, the figures show that there's a disproportionately high rate of offending amongst some of the migrant groups that come in.
I think those figures
that naturally alarms people.
Dubious.
They want their children to be safe when they're walking to school and so forth.
Well, of course, the individual involved in the Peterborough case, still all allegations, nothing has been proven. There's an active case there, so let's not impugn any guilt. He, of course, defends his innocence. But there is the case that Afghans and Eritreans in this country are 20 times more likely to commit sexual assault than people who are British of origin. Partly that is because most Afghans and Eritreans are male and young, and that's the group that does that. But even accounting for that, there are some cultures that have very different values to people born in this country. Attitudes towards women, attitudes towards the age of consent. These are different in different parts of the world, sadly.
Yes, and we still get a lot of people on both. I mean, look, I believe that we should be very tough on immigration and we should be giving people who arrive without visas, right, we should only take serious refugees. I absolutely agree about that. But I just think this whole thing about, you know, migrants are dangerous, when actually, you know, we've had danger all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
most of us don't believe that. A lot of migrants are, of course, decent people that we welcome in and they settle in and they do jobs and all the rest of it. But you must see that people feel we've not been careful enough because we've let in so many people, and the danger is some criminals have been let in and some potential criminals.
Well, speaking of not being careful enough, we have not been careful enough with the time. It's time to go to an advert break, but we will be back very, very soon. You're with State of the Nation with me, Tom Harwood. Still to come, Ed Miliband planning to spend £13 billion on net zero. Taxpayers' money, can we afford it? You're at GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
What I've discovered is that a comet that was observed by the Chinese in 5 BC, I put together the information from their observation to come up with an orbit that would take this particular comet very, very close to the Earth. And as it passed the Earth, probably about the distance to the moon, a position on the rotating Earth would have seen the comet pause for a period of hours over a location. We have the same thing now with the geosynchronous satellite. If you stand at the equator, there are geosynchronous satellites that stay over your head 24/7. This comet was so close to the Earth that it would have had the brightness of like a first quarter or full moon. So it would have been clearly visible in the daylight.
So it would have been easier for them to follow. And how quickly would they have had to have travelled? Could they have travelled fast enough to keep up with it?
Well, it would have been a direction. So it turns out it takes 2 or 3 hours to walk from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. It's a relatively short distance. And that's the period of time where it behaved like this for those few hours. So there was the time available. Now, of course, their trip from the east, it would have taken many weeks. And the Chinese said the comet was visible in the constellation Capricorn for more than 70 days. And it's that appearance in one constellation for an extended period. Pilots know this. If you see an object in the sky while you're flying a plane, and it's not moving left, right, or up, down, it's actually on a collision course, or nearly so with you. So the comet was heading more or less directly towards the Earth until, at least in my theory, they arrived in Jerusalem and walked that distance from Jerusalem to Bethlehem.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good evening, welcome back to State of the Nation. It's 28 minutes past 8. Now, big ambitions in Whitehall today as Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, a fan favourite, is reportedly potting a £13 billion solar panel blitz to turn millions of British homes into so-called zero-bill, net-zero properties. Well, on the face of it, who wouldn't like the idea of slashing energy costs and boosting green power? But the question is, who's paying for it? And is it actually going to be you? Do any of us have the money to pay for all of this? Well, with government coffers already stretched and public services under pressure, critics say it could all mean higher taxes or unchecked cuts in other areas. Or, of course, there's that third option that politicians love so much, piling on ever more debt. So, is Ed Miliband chasing yet another unaffordable pipe dream? Well, joining me, of course, is the former Conservative MP for Wokingham, Sir John Redwood, and the former Labour writer, Scarlett Maguire. Sir John, start with you this time. This is a very expensive pledge from the Energy Secretary.
Yes, it is, and a very misleading one, this idea that people might end up with a net zero bill. I mean, it's going to cost tens of thousands to get a home up to the right insulation standards, to put in a heat pump, to put in all the extra battery storage and all of the solar panels so that it could have some pretense of generating its own power and storing it when there was no sun. Because remember that solar panels only work 10% of the time in Britain because we have an awful lot of dark nights and cloudy days when there's not very much power being generated. So there's going to be all that cost. If this is all really going to be on the taxpayer, then how does it help me if I've got to pay a bigger tax bill in order to have a lower energy bill? Or surely I suspect that he's going to say that the individuals in their homes have got to pay some of the bill for the insulation and the solar panels. So it's not actually going to be cheaper because they're going to have to repay all that capital and pay the interest on the loan.
Scarlett, I thought we were all broke.
I think we are broke. Look, can I say, I have solar panels. I invested in them. They save me about half. I mean, so during the summer, most of an awful lot goes into the battery and back to the grid. During the winter, it's only when it rains or it's dark that it doesn't work.
Isn't the problem here, though, that unlike in California, where when it's really sunny, they need a lot of energy because they run air conditioning all the time, in Britain, we tend to use most energy when it's least sunny. So in some parts of the world, photovoltaic cells are wonderful and perfectly aligned with peak energy use. In Britain, it's completely unaligned.
I know, but it does save me an awful lot of money. And from my bedroom, I can see my daughter's old primary school, which is full of solar panels. And I think, yes, they're saving me on my council tax because. But
how much do the solar panels cost you? And did you borrow to do that, or did you just have the money available?
No, I didn't borrow. I paid for it, and it will take 10 years to pay it back. Look, what I'm saying is it was a good investment, right? And it does work, and it's so actually that's what it. I mean, obviously, renewables will save money. Insulating homes is a really, really good thing. I mean, it's terrible that so many homes are built badly, social housing as well as private housing. I mean, I think it's a good thing to aim for. It's going to be over many, many years.
Yeah, as a proud owner of a relatively new owner of a relatively drafty Victorian single-glazed home, I really do feel how poorly insulated so many houses are in this country. Our housing stock, one of the oldest in Europe. But, John, to broaden this out into a wider economic question, what do you think the strategy of this government is? You have Rachel Reeves at one time saying, well, we've got to be really tight, budgets are tight, real terms cuts in some departments. And then Ed Miliband runs around and does a spending spree.
Well, he's allowed to spend anything he likes, it seems, and they're going to waste a fortune on things that won't work very well or are less good than the things they're replacing. And they're going to retire an awful lot of perfectly good electricity generating capacity early because they don't like the fuel it burns. replace it with much dearer equipment. And this latest licensing round for more solar and wind is going to be much higher prices that they're allowing. And so far from bringing bills down in 5, 10, 15 years' time, they're actually binding us into very expensive contracts.
On wind, that does seem to be the case. But do you accept that the price of solar has come crashing down over the course of the last
solar
decade?
panels have come crashing down, but not the battery storage. And you can't make these things work unless you have a lot more battery storage than the typical home or installation currently has, because it's so unreliable. And, you know, as you rightly say, we need peak energy at the moment because it's so cold in this country. There's about 16 hours of darkness, so there's not a lot of use for solar panels.
It's just rotten luck, isn't it, that we like, sort of, as soon as we all decided to stop using oil and gas, of which we have quite a lot, we're now going to sunshine, of which we have very little. I mean, if only we're a bit further south.
This is 13 billion we can't afford. No wonder.
We do have this thing called climate change. We're getting more and more sunshine. I mean, you know,
bring on the vineyards.
Last year was the hottest year in Britain on record. I mean, we do have to take it seriously, and actually, so renewables are good because they cost less. Renewables are good because they're better for the country.
They don't cost less. They cost more at the moment. If you're talking about wind, this is the tragedy of it all. We are locking into high-cost energy, which our competitors are not locking into, and you need gas backup because you can't actually trust these systems sufficiently. So we actually need to be buying a new set of combined cycle gas turbine power stations as well for the days when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow.
If only 15 years ago we decided to build some more nuclear power stations. But I believe the Deputy Prime Minister in 2011, I think it was, had some choice words to say about not needing to...
too long. Yes.
He said they'd only be on stream by 2022. I mean...
If only, yes.
Yeah, they'd have been on stream at the time of the energy crisis.
You can't blame this government for. They are trying to build nuclear power stations, possibly too late. I mean... late.
Well, we'll see if they implement the. We'll get technical now, but the Fingleton review. We'll see if they implement all those recommendations. But credit where credit's due. That review seemed to be genuinely transformatory. We could get cheaper nuclear, and that would be a very, very good thing. Well, Scarlett, John, thank you very much indeed. Still more to come, but I should say the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero has put out this statement. We're investing an additional £1.5 billion into our Warm Homes plan, taking it to nearly £15 billion. Gosh, we've undercounted. The biggest ever public investment to upgrade homes and tackle fuel poverty ever. We're doubling down on support for home upgrades, and we'll set out our plans to help households and support thousands more clean energy jobs soon. Well, that's what they have to say. Your State of the Nation. State of the Nation with me, Tom Harwood. Still to come. Figures from Migration Watch UK suggest 900,000 social homes are occupied by immigrants. Is this a good use of taxpayers' money? Well, you're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Whilst there's plenty of dry and bright weather across the UK at the moment, it's a different story around southern Europe. There's some rain sweeping its way towards Madeira and towards the Canary Islands through the next couple of days. It's wet across southern parts of Spain and northern Morocco. Some thundery rain likely again as we go through later this week. And further east, also some outbreaks of rain affecting parts of Greece and towards Cyprus. And some of these could be heavy and thundery at times. More changeable weather to come as we head into the new year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we head into the last day of 2025, there's going to be a lot of dry, a lot of clear weather around, but it is also going to be cold with a harsh frost for many of us as well. That's because high pressure firmly in control across much of the country. I say much of the country because there is a front pushing into Orkney and Shetland, bringing blustery winds and also a few outbreaks of showery rain here. Elsewhere, a dry night for most of us, apart from one or two showers across some eastern, southeastern parts of England, and lots of clear sky. With that clear sky, temperatures plummeting, widely dropping a bit below freezing. In fact, in some places, could get as low as -7, -8 Celsius, so a harsh frost here. Also watch out for some fog, some freezing fog perhaps across some southern parts, which could take a little bit of time to clear as we go through New Year's Eve. Otherwise, it's looking largely fine and bright for many places, particularly towards the south, but later on tomorrow we are going to see a bit more cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain pushing into parts of Scotland. It is going to be a chilly day with temperatures again a little bit below average for the time of year. Now as we head through the evening tomorrow, and we're going to continue to see more cloud, more showery outbreaks of mostly rain pushing their way across parts of Scotland. As we head towards midnight itself, well, that's when those showers are going to become increasingly frequent, perhaps heavier. We're going to see the winds strengthening as well, and more likely to see some sleet and snow mixed in with them, particularly across northern parts of Scotland and over higher ground. Also a chance of some of that showery rain pushing into parts of Northern Ireland and the far north of England, but further south, the central southern parts of England and Wales, it's staying dry. Clearer skies towards the south, allowing again for a frost and also some fog patches in a few places. As we go through the beginning of the new year, well, it is going to turn increasingly cold and a risk of snow pushing its way southwards. Bye-bye.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good evening. This is State of the Nation. It's 39 minutes past 8. And before we move on, as New Year's Eve approaches, don't forget tomorrow night you can ring in your New Year's in style right here on GB News. Yes, you can join Ben Leo, Miriam Cates, Alex Armstrong, Bev Turner and many others as we bring in you full coverage of New Year's Eve from around the UK and the world. They'll be looking back at the best moments of 2025 and ahead to what to expect in 2026. You won't want to miss it. New Year's Eve live tomorrow night at 10 o'clock here only on GB News. But now, figures from Migration Watch suggest that around 900,000 social homes are occupied by immigrants. This raises questions about fairness and taxpayer money. Well, their data reveals 19.2% of social housing tenants in England and Wales were born outside the UK, of which only half, around half, are in employment. So should British taxpayers shoulder higher taxes to fund subsidised housing, sometimes in the most expensive parts of the country, for everyone, regardless of origin? Well, joining me now is Reform's Westminster City Councillor, Layla Cunningham. Layla, thanks indeed for joining me. I'm going to put my cards on the table here. I live in Zone 2 in London, and I commute into work. I work in Zone 1 in London. I pay through the nose to live in Zone 2, and I see a lot of people who live in subsidised housing in much more desirable areas than I live in. I just can't stand the unfairness of it all.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, and if you were going for social housing, foreign nationals get priority in social housing. I mean, Londoners pay the highest taxes in the country, and we get the worst value because London's at breaking point. Services are collapsing. And we're asked to pay for foreigners when the people who are actually paying for the foreigners themselves can't afford to live in London. I know that's... So the way it works, I don't know if your viewers know, but you are an asylum seeker, and then when you're granted asylum, you become a refugee. And through successive governments, legislation has been passed to say that those most in need are the ones that go to the top of the list. And Tony Blair brought in legislation to say that those most in need must include refugees. And so they do go to the top of the list, sadly. And I've seen it in Westminster, you know, and they get asked, by the way, where do they want to live in London? And of course, a lot of them pick, as you say, Zone 1 and Zone 2. And what people don't realise is that when someone is granted a refugee status, they're also entitled to a family reunion, so they can bring someone with them. So it's a multiplier effect. So it's not just a one-off decision. So one successful claim can, as we've seen, let's say with the Boris wave, which was not a refugee, but several more can arrive, and they all have access to housing, and they all go to the top of the list. And British citizens are second class.
Why do we have so much social housing, particularly in very expensive parts of the country, that is going to those who were not born in this country? The proportions in London are extreme. In some boroughs, far north of 50% of social housing is going to people not born in this country. And it is in, again, the most expensive parts. I mean, are these people incapable of commuting? I mean, I have to commute. Why do these people not have to commute?
Well, I could be wrong, but they take into account if they can commute, if they can speak English. They normally invent some family ties in an area, you know, and a huge cost to councils, especially in London, is temporary housing. And temporary housing mainly goes to refugees. So what happens is they're waved through the asylum system because the governments want to virtue signal and say we're getting it through it quickly. And they're immediately placed in that same limited supply of housing that British families are waiting for.
It is an extraordinary situation. To me, it seems really, really extraordinary that some of the most valuable... I mean, we could sell a lot of the council housing in central London and build many more, factorially times the number of houses that are in central London, sort of slightly further out. I wouldn't see that that would be a particularly controversial policy. It would save a lot of money, but oh well, we are where we are. Layla Cunningham, thanks indeed for talking us through the particulars of this extraordinary situation. Appreciate your time. Let's speak to my panel now. The former Conservative MP for Wokingham, Sir John Redwood. The former Labour writer, Scarlett Maguire, joins me as well. Scarlett, why do we have so much social housing in so many very, very expensive areas? Because
London boroughs build social housing, which I think is really, really important. You can't say, well, we're not going to have any poor people living in Kensington. Grenfell, right, that terrible, terrible thing that I saw only this evening, was Chelsea and Kensington, right? Lots of poor people live there. I mean, you don't want London as only an exclusive place for rich people. And actually, I mean, you want it to be mixed. I mean, that's really important. So this whole thing about...
Not every city in the world does that.
I'm very pleased that we do it. I'm very, very pleased that what we say is that every borough in London should have social housing, that every borough in London should have people who cannot afford, to live in very expensive places. I think...
Wouldn't it be better if we just made the cost of housing cheaper? If we built enough housing in this country... I want to live in a country where no one has to live in state-subsidised housing.
That would be great, and let's put up everybody's wages, right? But at the moment,
or just increase supply. Otherwise,
increase.
Putting up people's wages might put up house prices a bit further.
Increasing supply doesn't mean that we lose what we've got. Of course, we're trying to increase supply. I mean, at the moment, Sadiq Khan is building social housing and non-social housing in London.
The number of housing starts has not been lower since recession times.
Actually, there is...
London's had a massive drop-off in housing. Massive drop-off.
Tom, it really hasn't, and it's very, very important that we go on building housing in London and around London, and that doesn't mean that we lose the social housing we've already got. We can have both.
John.
Well, the problem is that we've been inviting too many people in, and your 900,000 is not just refugees, of course, it's also people who've come in to do low-paid jobs.
Yes.
Come in as dependents on those with low-paid jobs.
They do have to wait a certain amount of time before they can... But after, I think it's 5 years, they're able to.
Yeah, that's right. And I and others thought that was a mistake at the time, and we tried to dissuade previous governments from doing this. And we said, you think this is cheap labour, and the employers love it because it's much easier than training somebody and paying them a bit more to get somebody British who's already settled here. But it's not cheap for the taxpayer. because they will need benefit top-up. They will need help with their housing costs, whether it's private sector or social sector. And if they are fortunate enough to get a social sector home, the subsidy is even bigger. So this didn't turn out to be cheap labour. This turned out to be very expensive labour, and people don't want this to carry on.
Well, there's lots more to discuss there. We have, I'm afraid, run to time, and we do need to squeeze in time for my next item. Yes, this is State of the Nation. I'm very excited for what's to come. According to a briefing pack only just released to the National Archives, Tony Blair considered building a secret bunker under Downing Street in case of a terror attack. Well, with these revealed documents only breaking today, we'll discuss them next on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in a chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Now, I love declassified documents, and today we've received a whole tranche of declassified documents from 20 years ago. Yes, 2005. One of them reveals that Tony Blair was planning a secret lair, or at least an extension to Downing Street underneath the garden. Scarlett Maguire, would this have been a good idea if it ever went ahead?
I don't know whether it would have been a good idea, but I do think that even Tony Blair in 2005 knew that he would not be around to get the secret bunker in case there was a terrorist attack. I mean, it now seems completely ridiculous, but actually, at that stage, remember, they were rebuilding part of Parliament, Portcullis House, which John will know more than me about how many millions it cost and how many millions it went over. I mean, of course, a secret bunker would just It would have been madness.
I mean, but it is a little bit silly that we sort of have government run from an old Georgian or even pre-Georgian townhouse with not much extension to it.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I only wish people would live with the constraints. See, when I was helping Margaret Thatcher, we only employed a limited number of people you could actually fit in because we wanted to be in number 10 itself. And now they're all over the place, and the more advisors prime ministers have, the worse they do and the shorter their tenure.
But apparently
we need to stop them having all these people.
Apparently this came about because George Bush had a state visit in 2003 and someone complained about how small Downing Street all was, and perhaps Tony Blair got a bit jealous of the Americans.
Well, of course. I mean, look at the White House with everything. I mean, of course, Tony Blair was always a bit jealous of the Americans and also how much power they had. But I think, I mean, I do remember...
But at least he was sensible enough not to go for the folie de grandeur and actually do this thing, because I think he'd have been ridiculed.
Yes, if Blair Force One wasn't enough, the bunker might have been... Well, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid.
The IRA.
But yes, that's an interesting one. Up next, of course, is Patrick Christie's, the one and only. What have you got coming up?
Yeah, well, loads on, Tom. Great show. So the sister of the Egyptian anti-Semite that we imported, I think she should be deported as well. We've dug out her tweets. And there's a radical preacher who looks like he's on his way to Britain. Can we stop him?
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we head into the last day of 2025, there's going to be a lot of dry, a lot of clear weather around, but it is also going to be cold with a harsh frost for many of us as well. That's because high pressure firmly in control across much of the country. I say much of the country because there is a front pushing into Orkney and Shetland, bringing blustery winds and also a few outbreaks of showery rain here. Elsewhere, a dry night for most of us, apart from one or two showers across some eastern, southeastern parts of England, and lots of clear sky. With that clear sky, temperatures plummeting, widely dropping a bit below freezing. In fact, in some places, could get as low as -7, -8 Celsius, so a harsh frost here. Also, watch out for some fog, some freezing fog perhaps across some southern parts, which could take a little bit of time to clear as we go through New Year's Eve. Otherwise, it's looking largely fine and bright for many places, particularly towards the south, but later on tomorrow, we are going to see a bit more cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain pushing into parts of Scotland. It is going to be a chilly day with temperatures again a little bit below average for the time of year. Now, as we head through the evening tomorrow, and we're going to continue to see more cloud, more showery outbreaks of mostly rain pushing their way across parts of Scotland. As we head towards midnight itself, well, that's when those showers are going to become increasingly frequent, perhaps heavier. We're going to see the winds strengthening as well, and more likely to see some sleet and snow mixed in with them, particularly across northern parts of Scotland and over higher ground. Also, a chance of some of that showery rain pushing into parts of Northern Ireland and the far north of England, but further south, the central southern parts of England and Wales, it's staying dry. Clearer skies towards the south, allowing again for a frost and also some fog patches in a few places. As we go through the beginning of the new year, well, it is going to turn increasingly cold and a risk of snow pushing its way southwards. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with, each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win,